Well, welcome to another exciting show of Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of those different decisions involving your dollars. We've got our usual host of topics on the program this week, but want to take a moment and, of course, reflect on Veterans Day. So if you are a veteran, we want to take a moment and thank you for your service, because without you, this country would not be where it is today. So thank you, and make sure you take time to say thanks to a veteran as well. It really should be like a whole weekend thing, really. Not just limited to a single day, but happy Veterans Day one day late, because technically it was yesterday on Saturday. So anyway, this past week, we also hosted one of our regular client educational events, sort of a review of 2023, a look ahead to 2024. We're going to be talking about that in the program, sharing with you some parts of that conversation that really are going to be impacting your money next year. So you certainly want to listen in on that part of the conversation. And then also on the show, joining me today is Kristin Kalley. Kristin, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Joel. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Really looking forward to what you've got to share with our listening audience this week on the program. And what is your topic du jour, if you will?
Yep. So today we're going to be talking about the Secure Act 2.0 and some of the provisions that are going to be coming into play in 2024. Some of them, you kind of got to connect some of the dots to see how it's going to work. So we'll get into that.
Yeah. When we were kind of preparing for the show earlier this week, I raised a couple of kind of head-scratching questions on exactly how all of these things are going to play out. So we'll share with you that. That's sort of a follow-up. If you're a regular listener to the program, you know a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the October 22nd program, another one of the folks on the team here at Nelson Financial Planning, Christina Lamb, joined on that show. She talked a lot about the main changes that are around for 2023. Mm-hmm. And you're obviously going to talk about some of the, I guess there's four main takeaways for 2024 and kind of going forward. But the interesting thing of what happened after that show that she was in is it did spur some additional questions from one of our listeners about what we were talking about in terms of that Roth option. So let's recap that one a little bit, Kristin, because I know you did some additional research as well on this particular item. What's the deal with employer contributions being now allowed to be on a Roth basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so starting in 2023, previously, before that, you could only have your employer match go into a pre-tax 401k, pre-tax 403b, that sort of thing. Now you have the option to elect for your employer match to go into a Roth 401k or a Roth 403b, which is pretty interesting. And it is pretty cool for owner employees.
Sure.
Because then you can do a pre-tax 401k, get the tax deduction, and then match yourself with a Roth.
And that was the genesis of the question, because this individual that was asking the question was also the owner. And so when you think about that, it really is almost sort of, I guess, a no-brainer, mm-hmm. Particularly from that employer-employee perspective. If you're one and the same, if you're the owner-employee, then the contribution is tax deductible because it's a matching contribution, but then it goes into your account on an after-tax basis. So some interesting stuff there.
Yeah. The only problem is I don't think a lot of platforms have put this into effect yet. It's still kind of getting processed, working into the payroll platforms and that sort of thing. So you might not see it as an option yet, but probably in 2024 we'll actually start seeing this come up.
So brand spanking new for 2023, but again, the problem is that all of those plans have to amend themselves in order to provide it as an option. So hopefully folks will see that for next year. But a great example of how we love it when our listeners reach out to us with additional questions about topics that we have on the program. So don't hesitate to do that at any point in time. If you have any issue sort of figuring out how to communicate with us, well, go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com, or you could even pick up the phone and call us, 407-629-6477. Welcome those questions, and also welcome suggestions for topics as well. So if there's something that we haven't talked about lately on the program and you want to kind of have us chat about it, well, we will do that as well. So this, of course, is Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. My name is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. Joining me, as I said earlier in the program, a fellow certified financial fiduciary and a fellow certified financial planner, and not fellow because I'm not one, but you are a CPA. So Kristin Kalley joins us this week here on the program. So what did you think about the educational meeting that we had earlier this week?
Yeah, it was very interesting. We hit on a lot of timely topics. So we talked about interest rates, inflation, AI. That's a big one. That's always just questions floating around about it. And it was in a more conversational format. So kind of a question-answer sort of thing, and it went really well.
Yeah, it's a different format. Normally, for those of you that are clients of Nelson Financial Planning, we host a series of events throughout the year that are purely educational in nature. So we usually bring in a speaker. Maybe it's an investment manager. Maybe it's an economist. Maybe it's a tax professional. Whatever the case may be, we believe strongly in education, helping people to make better financial choices. And so this one was not the usual monologue format. It was sort of a conversation back and forth. So I'm thinking maybe we'll, because it was well received, that maybe we'll roll that out. This was a breakfast meeting. We'll roll that out maybe for our dinner meeting in January. But certainly some interesting reflections on 2023 that we had during the course of the conversation.
Yeah, there's been a lot of market headlines, just, a lot of wars going on, just an unsafe world and so much political uncertainty.
Yeah, and that really is kind of a forefront of all of that. And then I think you intersperse on that just the level of negativity that comes with all that. Anytime you have uncertain times, anytime your political uncertainty and global uncertainty, then there's clearly makes it easy to emphasize the negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And we did see a lot of that last year.
That is for sure. Actually, last weekend, I was up at Parents Weekend at the University of Virginia, where my middle son is going, and I want to share with our listening audience one of the charges that his class was given, and I think this is valuable for all of us. And the challenge was to take one day a week and stay off of the internet, social media, all of that, because the theory is that it's probably going to improve your mental health if you do that.
I can completely see that. So, yes.
So that is the challenge to our listening audience, okay? The only exception being that you can always listen to Dollars and Cents on your favorite podcast platform on any day of the week. But the charge is take a day, a week, to just disconnect from all of that. Might help you feel a little bit better about what's going on in the world at large. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of those topics that we conversed with earlier this week in our educational meeting, and particularly how that's going to impact your money as we think about next year and going forward. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Kristin Kalley of Nelson Financial Planning. So as we think about 2023 and sort of the year that it has been, I think history, Kristin, is going to show that this year is going to be somewhat of an inflection point when we think about interest rates, when we think about inflation, sort of hitting those peaks and then sort of receding during the course of this year.
Yeah. From some of the latest data, it looks like interest rates are at their peak right now, and it kind of looks like inflation's finally cooling off a bit.
Certainly some positive developments that obviously will extend over into 2024. But even though, when you think about interest rates at their peak, it's still the impact of those still is creating some tightening financial and lending conditions, right? Because the Fed last raised rates in July, but you still see mortgage rates and things like that kind of still creeping up even since July.
Yeah, and we do think that the Fed is going to start lowering those interest rates, maybe 0.5% or a full percentage coming up.
Well, and that's their own projections. The Fed itself, they have out their projections of where they see interest rates to be. But, I mean, I think one of the main concerns that I have when we think about, 2023 potentially being sort of that inflection year where we hit peak rates, where we hit peak in inflation, is that we forget how quickly interest rates can shift. And when we think about money market rates and things like that, typically you see those rates actually fall or start to fall much sooner or on average about 10 months before the Fed itself starts to cut interest rates. Mm-hmm. So there clearly could be some missed opportunity in terms of the amount of money that is sitting in cash, because everybody is sort of enamored with money market rates at 5%, but that's a seasonal kind of thing.
Yeah, and Joel, we mentioned that there's just a staggering amount of money sitting in money markets right now and sitting in cash. Last figures we looked at was $10 trillion.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah. Yeah, and that's larger than like the GDP of 190 countries or something like that. Like it's almost an amount that is too much to wrap your head around, but it is seasonal, and I think that's the point, Kristin, that a lot of folks might be missing out, and this could lead to a real missed opportunity, because if you think your money market rate is going to stay at 5% forever, we know that that's not going to happen. It's really almost like a holiday season special, right?
It's a great way to refer to it. Yes.
much like our holiday season special of our free book offer, right? So little transition over to the book, Next Gen Dollars and Cents, between now and the end of the year. Yours free, our brand new book, talking about all the different financial strategies that you need to know to help educate you to make the best possible financial choices. Next Gen Dollars and Cents, available free for the asking. Just go to our website, Nelson Financial Planning, or call the office 407-629-6477, and just like those interest rates, those money market rates, this is a holiday special, if you will, that goes until the end of the year. So make sure you get your copy as well. Because if we think about where the Fed is going to be a year from now, with interest rates, anywhere from, as you said, 0.5% to a full percentage point less than where they are right now, what that translates to money market rates is you can see money market rates back down to 3% at that point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's certainly quite a drop from 5% that we're looking at right now.
Well, and if you think of how much we've come just this year, the beginning of this year, that's about where money market rates were, is 2.5%, maybe 3%, up to 5% now. Where might they be a year from now? And what history says is that those rates really do fall, and fall in terms of time, fall roughly 10 months before the Fed starts cutting interest rates. So something that folks really need to be kind of aware of and to be careful about.
Yeah, and it really is a potential for missed opportunities, like you mentioned a little bit ago, just having all of that sitting in cash and kind of missing out for these market opportunities.
And if you think of it in terms of how markets perform during the course of interest rate cycles, and it's the old expression of don't fight the Fed, where if the Fed is making credit conditions tighter, then that's usually tougher on the economy, usually tougher on corporate earnings. But then when it flips, it goes the other way. Mm-hmm. And the biggest part of that is that during that course of time, then you typically will see some market improvement. Now, there was another area that we also talked about that was a potential for missed opportunity, and I guess that's on the international side.
Yeah. So that's something else we talked about at the client event, is just kind of making sure you've got some international in your portfolio. It's significantly underperformed since 2009, except 2017. That's when it did better than domestic. But we do see that every decade or so, the tables flip with international and domestic. So it might make sense to kind of put some more international in your portfolio.
Well, and I think for most people, they're probably light on that, and that has they've probably continue to get lighter and lighter, particularly over the course of the past 10 years, when the domestic market really has, or the U.S. market has done better than most international. But the pattern is that it's much more evenly divided than what we have seen over the course of the past decade. So I guess that is the call to action, if you will, for our listening audience, is they've got two things to consider. First, okay, hopefully they haven't fallen in love too much with cash. Okay, it's nice to fall in love with it for the holiday season. We understand, but be careful, because those rates are not going to stay, particularly with where we are on this inflection point of the Fed probably being done raising rates, which means that the next step in the cycle is that they're going to start to cut rates. Mm-hmm. So watch out. Be careful about holding too much cash. And then, as we just said, be careful about owning too little international and missing out on opportunities.
Yeah, so just taking a look at your portfolio, seeing if there's need to be a rebalance, and just looking at the allocation.
Yeah, most important to do that. Particularly great time of year to be able to do that. Kind of thinking ahead, as the year's kind of winding down, thinking ahead to next year. Those kinds of things are certainly important. And then I think you mentioned this earlier. We also chatted a little bit about AI. And I had the opportunity on a plane this summer when I was doing some traveling to catch a great movie, classic movie. Okay, The Terminator? Have you ever watched The Terminator?
No, I have not.
Never watched The Terminator? Wow.
I think I need to now.
You do need to, because it'll keep you up at night thinking about what AI might become. Now, I don't think the reality is going to replicate the movie, but it's certainly an interesting technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so far AI has not passed the CPA exam, and they cannot make market predictions, so I think we're safe.
Wow, that's okay. All right, that's good. That's good. I did not realize that tidbit about AI. The AI hasn't passed the CPA exam. That's good. That's very good. I like that. And at the end of the day, what we have found as a business is that it is a tool, right? And much like anything before, the internet, a computer. I mean, some of the things that I have seen develop in my lifetime that were going to eliminate humans or make us less valuable. At the end of the day, those are tools that made us more efficient, made us more productive, and we think AI is going to fall certainly in that category.
Yeah, and it is pretty cool. If you've looked at ChatGPT and just kind of asked it questions, it does answer pretty accurately.
Yeah, certainly. Going back to our new book, Next Gen Dollars and Cents, we were able to use some AI with that, particularly when it came to editing. We didn't really use it. I found ChatGPT somewhat cumbersome in terms of kind of the writing. Okay, maybe to get a baseline introduction to a concept, we might use it. We're using it a little bit there, but the biggest tool was just the editing, and to go through all of that. Like, we would submit 100 pages of the book, and then within 10 minutes it would come back and show missed commas and missed verb tenses and things like that. So definitely a tool, and if you've got a business, or even if you just kind of like playing around with technology, it's certainly something to get familiar with. Mm-hmm. That is for sure. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to get to the 4 key takeaways that you need to know from the most recent version of the Secure Act. Coming up next here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Kristin Kalley of Nelson Financial Planning. Welcome back to Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. We're one of Central Florida's longest running radio programs, also happen to be a top 25 financial planning podcast as well. So make sure you check us out on your favorite podcast platform. Have any trouble finding us on any of these locations, just go to our website, nelsonfinancialplanning.com, and you'll see a bunch of icons, and click on any of those and you'll get immediately connected to our channel. Once you're there, make sure you subscribe. That way you know when we upload new content, and we upload new content every single week to all of those different platforms. My name, of course, is Joel Garris, certified financial planner, certified financial fiduciary. Joining me on this week's program is Kristin Kalley, also one of the certified financial fiduciary, certified financial planners, and CPAs on the team at Nelson Financial Planning, where we got a great team of folks like Kristin and the rest who stand ready, willing, and able to help you make sense of all of those decisions that have anything to do with your finances. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Secure Act. Give us a little bit of a background on why this is such a crucial topic.
Yeah, so the Secure Act, it stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement. So just like it sounds, it's trying to get people ready and prepared for retirement. So I did some research on this, and it looks like, according to a recent poll, about half of Americans say they don't have enough saved for retirement. And a third of that say that they're significantly behind on their savings.
Not good numbers at all when
No.
you start to listen to some of these numbers.
Yeah, and millennials are actually behind every other generation, and they arguably have more time until retirement. So the fact that they're even further behind, it's pretty alarming. It's pretty bad.
Talking about missed opportunities, right? Missing out on the opportunity to have money grow and compound over an extended period of time. It's the old expression. It's the expression that we talked at length about in the book. Time in, not timing, is certainly a pretty fundamental concept that folks need to realize when we think about retirement. And clearly the notion of this most recent version of the Secure Act, because there was an earlier one from a few years ago. This one added a lot more, but clearly the message out of Washington is that retirement's kind of on you. That's what it really comes down to, is that you as the individual need to ultimately plan for your own retirement. And so that's why they keep kind of revisiting all of these, trying to secure, everybody for retirement. The reality is it comes back to you and your decisions and how you're spending your money, and more importantly, how you're saving your money.
Right. And with less pension plans available to new employees, it really is on them to start saving. So this Secure Act has some automatic provisions and things along those lines that just automatically help new employees start saving just by default.
Well, and certainly it's all about choice, and you really got to be thinking about the opportunity cost when you have a dollar. And as you mentioned, millennials, that generation is actually quite behind where they really should be.
Right. And with inflation at its highest in 40 years, it's time to start saving.
Right. No, absolutely. So you've got some takeaways, if you will, on the Secure Act. What are kind of the four keys, and then we'll spend some time sort of breaking them down in much more detail.
Yep. So the four key takeaways. So what the Secure Act was looking to do was increase limits, so make it able to contribute more to your retirement plans, make it easier to get started, so automatic enrollment, automatic deferrals, things along those lines, have better access to the money in your retirement accounts. We know a lot of people don't want to set up a retirement account because of the age restriction or because of the penalties. So just making it easier to access those funds in the case of an emergency or something along those lines. And then more incentives to start saving. So some good benefits for doing deferrals and that sort of thing.
So really just kind of broadening out the options and making it more, I guess, accessible is kind of the focus.
Right. Yes.
So tell us about that first one, though. So contribution limits, things like that, those typically go up every year based upon in inflation as well. But how much is that? But there's also some additional catch-up contributions and things like that the Secure 2.0 Act did. So what's the story on contribution limits?
Yep. So in 2024, your 401k limit is now going to be $23,000. So that's up $500 since last year, since 2023. And then with the catch-up, that's $30,500. But starting in 2025, there's actually going to be an increased catch-up if you fall between the age range of 60 and 63. So if you fall in that age range starting in 2025, you can actually do a $10,000 catch-up. So it's about $3,500 more than the current catch-up. But it is a little bit of an odd provision because once you turn 64, it goes back down to the original catch-up limit of $7,500. So it just sounds like a payroll nightmare trying to figure that out.
Leave it to Washington to complicate something that really shouldn't be complicated, right? I mean, I like the notion of there being one catch-up contribution or one catch-up amount if you're over 50, right? And then what they're trying to do is, okay, well, if you get to 60 and you're still behind, okay, and hopefully you're not, but unfortunately the statistics say more and more people are, then we're going to give you an opportunity to do an even bigger catch-up amount. So I get that philosophically, but like, well, that's just such a weird selection of age range. What would you say, 60 to 63? Is that right?
Yep. And then at 64, you go back down to the original catch-up.
That just doesn't make a lot of sense.
And the horrible part about it is, depending on the payroll platforms, if you over-contribute to a 401k, you are taxed on that over-contribution.
Right.
So I don't know how it's going to play out, but...
Certainly odd, particularly, if the notion of folks being better prepared for retirement translates to, hey, you probably need to work longer. Why wouldn't you have that catch-up contribution be that larger catch-up contribution be a permanent part, right? Once you turn 60, then, okay, there's a higher amount of a catch-up contribution limit, and then that goes on for as long as you want.
Right. So again, we see the intent, but some of the logistics of these provisions don't make the most sense.
Something out of Washington not making sense. Where have I ever encountered that before? All right. What else is part of this Secure Act? That's sort of one of the key things that folks need to know as they think about next year.
So this is going to be the automatic enrollment. So starting in 2025, if you have an employer 401k plan, if you're offering that to your employees, you're going to have to do automatic enrollment with at least a 3% deferral. So that doesn't mean you have to match. It's just you have to set your employees up or automatically enroll them and have them defer at least 3% of their salary.
Okay, so then that's 2025. Auto enrollment. Obviously, I could opt out if I didn't want it, but I will be now automatically enrolled with my contribution amount automatically increasing as well, correct?
Correct. Yes, it's supposed to increase 1% per year to a max of around 10% or 15%.
Okay, so every year I automatically enroll, and every year it just kind of keeps going up. Now, the other part of it, there's a little bit of a landmine there for the employer, right? What is that all about?
Yeah, so if you're in a safe harbor 401k or you're doing matching,
right,
suddenly all of your employees are going to be automatically enrolled. So that's going to be a larger matching expense. So something just to keep in mind as you're making these matching contributions and writing your plan amendments.
As an employer, then your cost is going to go up because now you're going to, by automatically enrolling all of your employees, if you're matching, then you've got more matching dollars that you would need to contribute.
Yeah.
Plus, it also applies to part-timers, right? So
yes.
there's different more part-time employees can now be eligible to participate.
Right. So this was started back with the Secure Act 1.0, where they said we should start including part-time employees in these plans. So that was if they worked for you 3 years, 500 hours. Now they can automatically be a part of it. Now it's 2 years and 500 hours, so they're lowering the restrictions for part-time employees.
More part-time employees can also participate. Interesting stuff. Well, that's 2 of the 4 key takeaways from the Secure 2.0 Act as we think about 2024 and going forward. When we return, we'll cover the other 2 here on Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Kristin Kalley of Nelson Financial Planning. So, Kristin, one other thing that I think we forgot to mention, we were talking about things that had happened this past week around the office. We were talking earlier in the program about our educational meeting that we had for our clients. But that educational meeting also marked an important kickoff day for an activity that we do every year at the office. Tell us about that.
Yep, that's our annual toy and food drive. So this benefits the Second Harvest Food Bank and also Toys for Tots. We've been doing it for a couple of years now. Over the past couple of years, we've raised over 3,000 pounds of food,
wow.
Hundreds of toys. So it's a great drive that we do, and it really starts to kick off the holiday season.
Well, and we certainly appreciate all of your contributions to these very worthy causes, Toys for Tots and Second Harvest Food Bank. And I think we're also opening up both as well to the general public. So if you drive by the office, you will see some signs out front that give you the opportunity. So whether you're a client or not of Nelson Financial Planning, happy to be a location where folks can donate to Toys for Tots and to Second Harvest Food Bank. So some fun stuff, and we were talking about this past week. The holidays are coming up, so we'll be decorating the office as well. We had a great debate on when the timing should be of that, right?
Yeah, I'm a fan for starting holiday decorations early, putting up the Christmas lights and whatnot. Yes.
And then we have the traditionalist camp, okay, which might include me, that likes it only after the Thanksgiving holiday. So then I promptly decided that we would decorate for Thanksgiving. So if you come by the office, you're going to see a big blow-up turkey starting tomorrow to recognize the Thanksgiving holiday before it gets in front of the Christmas and year-end holiday season. But in order to enjoy any holidays, it takes money. And if you're getting to retirement and you don't have enough, well, then that's the point of this show. So welcome into Dollars and Cents, where we help you make sense out of all of life's decisions involving your dollars. My name is Joel Garris. With me is Kristin Kalley. We're both part of Nelson Financial Planning. We got a team of great folks who also happen to be certified financial fiduciaries that stand ready this week to help you improve your life by providing successful and cost-effective financial guidance. So we talked about two of the key takeaways in the last segment on the Secure Act. Higher contribution limits, so that's good on 401ks. Bigger catch-ups, that's great. The ability for auto-enrollment, sort of pushing people to really, hey, you know what? You've got to participate in your employer retirement plan. But there are also some other things that are some of the key provisions of the most recent Secure Act. So what's next on the hit list, if you will?
Yeah, so the next one's going to be just making it easier to access the money in your retirement plans. We've kind of seen this as a trend over the past couple of years. So back in 2020, when the coronavirus was hitting everybody pretty hard, they came out with legislation that let you do a one-time withdrawal of up to $100,000 from your retirement accounts to kind of supplement income if you lost your job, just if things were hard, if you needed that sort of money, so you could pull it out without penalty, and then you have the option to put it back in over the next 3 years.
Right, and also pay the taxes. The beauty of that, which was really unique for that particular option, is that you could spread the taxes out over that 3-year period of time.
And then you did have the option to replace it. So if you wanted to put the funds back in, you could do that and then amend your tax return to get the taxes back. So that came back out in 2020. Last year we saw another sort of legislation like that. This was for qualified disasters. So if you lived in a disaster zone, Florida was actually impacted by Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Idalia last year. So that actually qualified for this sort of legislation. And it was very similar, but it was $22,000. And if you had a sort of a house leak or something that was related to the hurricanes, you could pull money out of your retirement accounts, no penalty, and be able to use it for those sorts of disasters.
So that really does kind of go to the concept of trying to get over people's objection of, I don't want to contribute to a retirement plan because if I need it in an emergency, then I have to pay a penalty if I'm not 59 and a half. But all of these, particularly this one involving federally declared disaster areas, really do kind of and the intent there is to offset that argument.
Right. Right. So now what they've come out with in 2024 is that you can do an emergency withdrawal for up to $1,000 once every 3 years for any sort of emergency, family emergency, anything along those lines. But it's only $1,000, so we kind of see the intent that it's to make it easier to access the funds, but we're not too sure how much $1,000 is going to, the impact of it is going to be.
That's and I know when we were talking and preparing for the show this past week, when you and I were talking about this one, I said I don't understand that. $1,000, that's gonna. I mean, and granted, if you need it, and $1,000 can make a difference, but it just struck me that didn't seem that significant, especially because you can only do it once every 3 years.
Yep, and just like the others, you have the option to replace it and then go back and amend your tax return, but honestly it would probably cost more to amend the tax return than to get the money back.
Right. That's typically the case, unfortunately. And then lastly, there's a lot better incentives to save in retirement plans. Why don't you tell us the two main ones that come to mind?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So one new that's starting in 2024 is a student loan payment match. So this is different than the typical student loan repayments that employers have had the option to do. So the way this one works is, let's say you have an employee that's putting 3% of her salary towards her student loans. She's not putting anything into her retirement plan, just, kind of focused on paying off the debt first. So what you can do as an employer is say, okay, well, this employee is putting 3% towards her student loans. I'll match that and put 3% in the retirement account. So it sounds like a pretty good kind of win-win for the employee. The employer would get the same sort of write-off for the contribution. The problem we see with this is there's just so much area for abuse on this sort of provision.
Right. Yeah, like how do you prove that? Because the paying off of the student loan would not be under the same umbrella as the 401k. That's just not how that would work.
Right. So another one where we see the intent and we see the good that could come from it, but there's just so much area for abuse, and the logistics of it just don't make the most sense.
Unfortunately, once again, it's something out of Washington that doesn't quite make as much sense as it should. And then the other thing that I think we chatted a little bit about is that the Savers tax credit, which is available for contributions for those that are below certain income levels, that one also is even funkier than than the logistics of contributing to student loans and then being able to match that.
Yeah, so this one's been around for a while. It's about $1,000 credit that you can get back as a refund on your tax return. But now they're flipping it so that instead of a refund, the government's going to essentially put it into your retirement account. You can't take it as cash. It must be put into your retirement account.
Force it in. So I don't know how that one's going to play out either. But anyway, that's an excellent segue to why you should continue to listen to Dollars and Cents on a regular basis, because it's those future programs where we will be updating you on all of the details behind the logistics of some of these changes that we've talked about here on this week's program. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up and get on out of here. Thanks so much for listening to the program. This has been Dollars and Cents with Joel Garris and Kristin Kalley of Nelson Financial Planning.